Hi, Lisa. How are
Hi,
you?
it's great to be with you today.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on, especially since we released "Selling with Noble Purpose" as a video book last month.
Woohoo!
And of course, hello to everyone here, and welcome to our latest Fireside chat. Thanks again for joining us today. If you don't know me yet, I'm Ronak Shet, the CEO and founder here at LIT Videobooks. Lit makes reading best-selling business self-improvement books as fun and entertaining as watching a movie or a documentary. And just stay tuned at the end for more information on Lit. But right now, I'm most excited to have this, exciting and engaging conversation with Lisa Earle McLeod around how using your noble sales purpose can be, the differentiator between good and exceptional sales performance. Lisa will share what a noble sales purpose is and how companies have leveraged their noble sales purpose to increase sales success, make faster decisions, and help employees connect the dots between their work, their clients' needs, and the company's mission. And the last 15 minutes, we'll do a Q&A. There's a Slido link that's in the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in there and upvote anything you really want answered. So Lisa, you are an author, consultant, keynote speaker, and executive coach, a prolific writer who has authored 5 books in 5 genres, including Selling with Noble Purpose. Your LinkedIn learning content has been utilized by over 2 million professionals, and you've coached leaders at organizations like Hilton and LinkedIn, as well as a number of startups. You're a contributor at Harvard Business Review, and your work has been featured in Fortune, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. I could keep going. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
As I hear that, I feel like I should say something quite profound. And I'll tell you that my work is the result of a deep interest in 2 lanes. One lane is what makes a company or an individual financially successful, and the other lane is what fills them with meaning and purpose. And it didn't really come together for me. They felt like 2 different lanes for a long time, and it didn't really come together for me until about 15 years ago, which is when I wrote the first edition of Selling with Noble Purpose, when the research showed that people filled with a purpose bigger than money, who truly want to make a difference to their customers, actually outsell people just focused on targets and quotas. And so that for me was the amalgamation of a lifelong quest to help organizations be more successful financially, and also an internal feeling that work should be meaningful.
It's amazing. And I guess, was there a specific moment that inspired you to write this book and create this philosophy?
There was, and I want to be really clear. I'm going to describe a moment, but Selling with Noble Purpose is based on a lot of solid research, especially the newer edition. And so I want to level set. The money matters, and salespeople matter, and closing business matters. And we also know that what's in a salesperson's head determines how they show up for customers. And so where this started was a million years ago. I was a sales trainer, and I ran a lot of the popular sales training programs. And the problem, we all know the problem. We want salespeople to be more customer focused. We want them to be more curious. We want them to provide more value to customers. We want them to partner with their customers. But then they get in front of the customer and they become very transactional. So this was a problem that we tried to solve through sales training. A lot of great programs, spin selling, Challenger, all these ones were trying to get salespeople to do this. But what I came to recognize, the reason they became so transactional was the true north was always the deal. And what happened, I'd been a sales trainer for years, and I'd been a sales consultant. And I was doing a consulting project where an organization wanted us to identify what was the difference between the good salespeople and the exceptional salespeople. So if anyone listening to this is a salesperson or a sales leader, you know that the difference between a good salesperson and a bad salesperson easy to spot. We know what it is. It's some concrete skills. They know their product. They make sales calls. We all know that. But good and exceptional was hard to put your finger on. And so we did a study with this biotech company. And what emerged, I got the tip from a single conversation where one salesperson described with great emotional resonance how her drug made a difference to the patients. And that pointed me, and this was 15 years ago. Most people weren't talking about purpose, at work unless they were in a nonprofit. And that pointed me. And through that study, we determined that the sellers with a sense of purpose, who truly wanted to make a difference to the customers, that was the differentiator between good and exceptional. And it affected everything they did. And so that for me was that crystallizing moment. I went on to study it, do more research on it, wrote books about it. But if you think about yourself as a seller or a sales leader or a customer, we can feel the seller's intent, and it shows up in 100 different ways. The problem is the true north of organizations is the revenue. And what we don't realize is the revenue is a lagging indicator. It's the result of improving life for customers.
That's amazing. Yeah, I recently listened to Howard Schultz on the Acquired podcast, where he talked about how one of the core things from the very early days of Starbucks was its people and having humanity throughout the entire life of the organization and treating every employee like they're a partner, right? And part of the family. And so, yeah, I think, I'm sure you have so many examples that we're going to dive into today, but couldn't agree more that it's absolutely fascinating and essential.
Well, one of the things that happens is we're really clear on purpose-driven brands when they're a consumer brand, Nike, Apple, Starbucks. But we work with a lot of B2B companies, and we're going to talk, I know, about a concrete company. And if you think concrete does not have a noble purpose, you try living your life without it. It holds up the world. But the challenge is in a B2B setting where it's maybe not so inspirational. It's not a thing that's in your hand. What we found is that is where you have to be so explicit about how your offering improves life for customers. And it goes beyond that very sanitized, what's your value prop? And here we all show our slide with our value prop. I mean, that's fine. But where our expertise lies in how are your leaders interacting with your salespeople and how are your salespeople interacting with customers? Because that is what determines your revenue, your margin, your market share, your market reputation.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. So excited to share just a quick peek of the opening of the video book and learn the big question. What exactly is a noble sales purpose? On you.
We have this traditional view of salespeople that's very transactional, but what the research and our own experience tells us is that doesn't really work. The top performing salespeople actually care deeply about helping their customers.
That's where the idea of a noble sales purpose came in.
Your noble sales purpose is how you make a difference to your customers. It is both a philosophy and a skill set. And what do I mean by that? The philosophy is that improving lives for customers is the emotional undercurrent of everything the company does. It sets the culture. The skill set is the way that the sellers and anyone who deals with customers interacts with them. So instead of that traditional transactional, let me show you what I got, do you want to buy it? They have a deep understanding of how they improve life for customers, and they're acting on that in every single interface that they have with the customers.
Amazing. So
you did such a good job on that video book. I'm like, wow, that's really good. Oh, that's me. So that was great.
Thank you. Yeah, the production team had a wonderful time. So Lisa, could you dive a little deeper into the philosophy behind this practice? So normally when you think about sales, think about, quota, targets, revenue, not philosophy. So
Right.
curious about your approach.
Quotas, targets, revenues, all matter. I am a former VP of sales. I did not come to this through some gauzy little emotional lane. The numbers matter. They are a lagging indicator. The numbers are the result of your sellers' interactions with customers. They're a result of product and all these other things, but we're talking about sales right now. And so your noble sales purpose is clarity about how you impact customers. There's a lot of people that hear the phrase noble purpose and they think a couple things. ESG metrics, be a good corporate citizen. Yeah, all those things matter. They matter. That's not the lane we're talking about. Those are periphery to the business. The noble sales purpose is very specifically a clear articulation of how you make a difference to customers. And I will give you an example. So we have two companies that are in the video book. One is Hilton, that has a 100-year-old legacy purpose, where Conrad Hilton said, we are here to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. Oh, I mean, it's so inspirational. It makes my heart swoon. We did a huge project with them. Watch the video book. They talk, their VP of sales talks about how they use that to change the way they interact with customers in a myriad of ways. The other company in the video book is Foundation Support Works out of Omaha, Nebraska. Most of what they do is concrete. They do foundation repair. So Hilton is selling meetings and this whole experience. These people are selling concrete. Couldn't be as different as night and day, but yet their noble purpose is to redefine their industry. And so I want you to compare the difference. So if you're thinking, oh, we sell software, we sell banking, it's not that sexy. It doesn't have to be that sexy. It just has to be effective. And so your noble sales purpose is the true north of your organization. So in the case of this concrete company, if I'm here to redefine, when I show up for a customer, I'm not just trying to, pour a bunch of concrete in their basement. I want to redefine the way they experience contractors. Because in most cases, if you've ever called a contractor, they're not always great. So they said, we want to redefine the reputation of our whole industry. We had another company who was IT, and their whole purpose was, we help small businesses become more successful. So your noble sales purpose is noble in that it's how you affect someone besides yourself. It's sales. It's the center of your commercial model. It's the thing that you sell, and it's purpose because it's driving every interaction. And so what happens is purpose has become a hot topic. I and a number of other people started writing about this about 15 years ago was when the first book came out. So on the one hand, it's great. It's on the cover of Harvard Business Review. On the other hand, it's become a marketing slogan, which is, I guess, better than nothing. But where we want to focus is the center of the commercial model. How does your purpose drive the way your people interact with customers? And what we know, and you see in these two examples, is both of these companies created competitive differentiation, drove exponential revenue growth, increased margin because they did have that competitive differentiation, and was able to attract and retain people that really cared.
That makes a lot of sense. And in terms of kind of like, we talked a little bit about the philosophy, now for kind of the skill set, right? You say it's not just the sellers who take on this skill set. It's anyone who interacts with customers. So could you give us an idea of what that looks like in practice from, a high level? We have a lot of attendees that are at different levels in their organizations and in various roles. And so it would be, I think, really helpful for everyone to understand how this could be utilized outside of, external facing salespeople.
So imagine, let's go across an organization, and we'll use one of the organizations in the video book, Foundation Support Works, and the CEO is in the video book. And so he's at the big all hands meeting, and this actually just happened for real. And he says, our noble sales purpose is to redefine our industry. Here's some examples of how we're doing that. Here's how we're redefining the customer interaction. Here's how we're making a difference. He tells stories about making a difference to customers. So he shows the financial reports like all CEOs do. And then he says, and here's why we're so successful, because we are making a difference to customers. And he lifts up stories. Here's how this sales team did it. Here's how these dispatch people did it. Here's how these people in the warehouse did it. That takes us to the next level, because when it comes to work, human beings, when it comes to life, we have two needs. Once we get beyond food and shelter, belonging and significance. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Where that comes to play in work, in that CEO conversation, he's saying, we make a difference. You're part of this team that makes a difference. Belonging is, I'm part of something bigger than myself. Significance is, my role matters. So one of the things we did at Foundation Support Works and also at Hilton was took it down to the bellboy in Vietnam, the people doing housekeeping in Brazil, the people pouring concrete in Omaha, Nebraska. How does your work impact our customer? Because one of the things people talk about a lot is we want to be good teammates. We want to impact each other and all of that is true. All of that is true. And everyone in the organization should have a sight line to how their work impacts your paying customers. That's that belonging and significance. And what happens, you mentioned early on in the intro, decision-making. If I am a housekeeper, if I am a catering person, if I am a concrete smoother, when I have in mind the end people that this is going to affect, I have a totally different lens for decision making. I'm able to make better decisions on the spot. I'm able to think through the impact of my work, because we always ask people, think about the big picture, think about the impact, but they can't do it, or they're not as inclined to do it if they don't have that picture. So it goes all the way. And these two companies are great examples because, you know, Hilton is a global company. Foundation Support Works is a North American company. Like I said, one's got a blue collar team doing tough, gritty work in concrete. The other is all of these hotels around the world. And what they've done so well, both of them, that we helped them with was articulate this clarity of purpose at the top and then connect the dots to every job. When you have that, you create competitive differentiation. That's both of them have one best place to work. And so I want people to see, a lot of times we look at these lanes very separately. Employee engagement, emotional engagement, competitive differentiation, that's marketing. Sales is closing the business. They all are part of the same thing. And that's that true north of what is your noble sales purpose.
It's amazing. And I'm sure it drives a lot of unity across a company too, right? When they have this kind of noble
alignment,
shared mission and purpose and alignment. And so, you know, the video book introduces the viewers to two different companies, as you mentioned, Foundation Support Works in Nebraska, construction business, and Hilton, who I'm sure everyone here knows or has heard of Hilton. So we're going to start off with Support Works. So let's dive in and learn how Support Works implemented and grew their organization by adopting a noble sales purpose. So I'm going to play another clip.
Meet Dave Thrasher, CEO of Support Works in Nebraska.
Support Works is a manufacturer and a distributor of products to home service contractors. But really at our core, we think of ourselves as a training organization where we help to support contractors, really running kind of all the back office, all of the different business functions and strategies that go into running a successful business.
Thrasher says a large part of Support Works' success came once they were able to identify their noble sales purpose.
Our purpose at Support Works is to redefine our industry. I think when we really named and claimed our noble sales purpose, it did two things. I think one is it really just gave us our employees that North Star, gave us a rallying cry, really galvanized the team for the why that we were in business. The other thing that naming and claiming our purpose really did for us was help us to solidify really our strategy for making business decisions. It was really able to speed up how we run the business efficiently.
So, where do we start in adopting our own noble sales purpose?
When you want to create your own noble sales purpose, it's really tempting to just take your organization's value prop. Most of the time, those are, well, dare I say it, pretty antiseptic and boring. So instead, we want to go a little deeper. So there are 3 questions that you can ask yourself and your organization. Number 1, how do we make a difference? How do we improve lives for our customers? Number 2, how do we do it differently? And I want to give a caveat on this. You might have some true product advantages, you might have some technical expertise, but how do we do it differently might also be emotional. And then the 3rd question you want to ask, on your best day, what do you love about your job? Within the answers to those questions, you will find your own noble purpose.
Amazing. Thank you to Dave and the whole SupportWorks team for being so gracious and letting us film at their company. So Lisa, could you tell us a little bit about SupportWorks and how did you get involved with their team, and how have you kind of seen their sales team grow from good to exceptional after they implemented a lot of these practices?
Well, as I'm watching that video and looking at their beautiful offices, I'm remembering when we started working with them and the day that we did come up with Redefine. And we asked those 3 questions. We weren't in those fancy offices. We were in an average office. And as I'm looking at them and seeing the people that we worked with, we asked those 3 questions. So how did we get in touch with them? It was crazy. Someone they interviewed for a sales job, they asked him, what's your sales philosophy? And he said, I read this book, the original edition, Selling with Noble Purpose by Lisa McLeod, and that's really what we do. And they go, well, tell us about that. And the interviewer goes, that sounds really good, and went and bought the book. So that's literally, he ended up with that.
Wow.
So someone's watching this video book and they're going to go, well, this is my philosophy. But anyhow, so they called us. I spoke at one of their conferences. I speak a lot. And this is important to note. The sense of purpose was already there in the business, but it was implicit. It was, we want to do well by our customers. We want to be different in the industry. And it's there in a lot of companies. It's just implicit. And so I spoke. We had a great session with their sales team. And they said, we think we want to take this a little further. So we needed to make it explicit. And we sat there in that conference room with the whiteboards. We asked the questions. They had interviewed some folks and we landed on their purpose. And then that's when the real work starts, because that's when we have to go throughout the company and activate it at every level. And so part of it is the message. And one of the things that people do when they try and activate a purpose is, I've seen some of the best companies in the world do wonderful messaging. But where the rubber meets the road is the manager interaction with the employee and the employee interaction with the customer. And that's where it has to be more than just a message that's repeated. That's when you shift from messaging and marketing to sales, and it has to be behavior. And so we embedded it across the organization. And I say we, 75% of the work in the beginning, maybe 80% of the work, that was them. And that's when we work with clients. We've all been to those workshops where someone comes in and everyone goes, that's great, we should totally do that. And then like 5 top performers will do it. But I realized early on, if we want something living, breathing inside the hearts and minds of a team, and we want it to be embedded in behavior, we have to train the top level of leadership to activate it all the way through. So at SupportWorks, it went all the way through to where you've got managers standing at a tailgate meeting saying, who's got a great Redefine story to kick off our Monday morning? Let's not forget that. I mean, so you have managers that are out there on job sites, pouring concrete, dealing with, somebody's flooded basement, and they know my job is to show this team how we redefine and point them that way.
It's amazing. Really interesting. And fascinating that you were able to kind of make this happen for concrete and construction. I think that means that, really like all of us, every company does have this kind of noble purpose, within.
Then I'll tell you something about those kinds of companies that are concrete, that are construction. We work with a plumbing company. Those companies are actually the backbone of the way people live in ways that we often underappreciate. And we've worked with a rail company. We work with a number of the Berkshire Hathaway companies. And they're in what I would say are non-sexy businesses because they're not as cool as having an app or having some software, but they are essential in terms of the way that we live our lives, the way business runs. And so people often say, oh, well, I don't know if we're a noble purpose company. If you have customers that are buying from you, you have a noble purpose because they wouldn't be buying from you if you weren't helping them.
It's amazing. And so I guess the discovery phase, let's break down this process a little bit. So could you dig into these three questions? Why are these the three crucial questions to ask? And how does this discovery process kind of eventually lead to exceptional sales?
Okay. So these three questions are important to ask because they get past that sanitized value prop, which tends to be very you focused and feature focused. So the questions are, how do you make a difference? And you can't just say, well, our customers are better off. Well, our customers are happier. Why? How does this impact them? We want the through line on the true, we call it the ripple effect. If you are selling accounting software and your customers can free up time for something else, what does that do for them? If they can have more competence, what does that do for them? So this, how do you make a difference? We're not looking for the short one sentence value prop answer. We're looking for the ripple effect, the physical, financial, logical, emotional, all of that. How do you do it differently? We're trying to capture the ethos of your company. And in the case of that financial, the IT company did, or the company did financial services for small businesses, they said, we care more. Like that can be a competitive differentiator. So we really want to get into all the ways you're different. And then when we ask that question on your best day, what do you love about your job? Every single person, if they say, well, I love accomplishing things. I love the high of the win. When we dig underneath it, we say, why? What about that was special? Every single person will come back to, it mattered. It made a difference. And so that's the narrative of that business. Then what we do is we work with the senior leadership team or the sales team, depending on whether we're doing like a whole company or whether we're doing a sales piece. We've done both. On what's the statement that embodies this? But the stories that we collect along the way, they really matter. So then once we have that, then we have to look at, and we always say that specificity is sexy. I got in trouble for saying this once, but it is. And by that, I mean, it is the thing that makes everything work, that makes everything really actionable. And so from there, then where we have to go is, what does your sales process look like? And how does this shift that? It doesn't usually change it a lot, but it shifts the questions that you ask of customers. It shifts the way you present your offering. It shifts your competitive positioning. It shifts it. It doesn't change it dramatically, but it serves as the undercurrent because you want to get really specific about when we're in discovery phase, if what we do is actually help our clients sleep better at night, we have to uncover what's keeping them awake right now. So it shifts things.
And I guess from a process standpoint, if you're a company looking to kind of implement this, right, and go through the discovery phase, who should be involved? Is there kind of a timeline or different stages to implement this so that once you answer these questions, you can find your noble sales purpose and what to do with it?
Yeah, so I can tell you two ways. One is you never called me and you used the book and we wrote the book so that you could do it. And now you can watch the video book. Like, so you don't need to call us. If you do want to call us, I'll tell you that way. Typically, and a company may already have it. In Hilton's case, Conrad Hilton came up with something better than I could have ever come up with. And, we had to work with the senior team, the commercial team in particular, on how do we activate, how do we execute. So you may already have it. It may be embedded in your mission statement already. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. typically when we work with a company, it takes us from start to finish about 60 days to come up with a purpose statement. And I say that's if we're starting from scratch. We usually do some employee groups, but the senior team, the most senior team, needs to be signed off on it. And sometimes that's the head of sales. Sometimes it's a head of commercial. Sometimes it's the CEO. We have worked with organizations, like I said, we work with some Berkshire Hathaway companies, and they sit underneath a larger thing. And so the higher up you can get it, the better. Having said that, we had a team in Australia where one sales manager read the book, had a team of 5 people, and said, we're doing this thing. They didn't need to call us. They asked the questions. They put them up on a board. They decided on their purpose. And then within a year, the senior leaders were going, why is that team performing so well? What are they doing? And that company ended up being one of our largest clients, Flight Center. But I say that because the thing that we always hear is, well, I'd love to do this, but see, my boss, my CEO, my VP of sales, my board, my sales manager, all they care about is numbers. If that's the case, don't wait to get them on board. Do not wait. You can come up with your own noble sales purpose for yourself if you're an individual performer using the process that's outlined in the book, and then you can activate it over the course of 90 days. People say, how long does it take once you've come up with one? And our answer is 1 day and a year. On the first day, you show up in the world differently, and usually within a year, you have some serious financial results.
That's really interesting. I like how it can both be leadership or kind of an individual, contributor, and they can demonstrate success to their higher ups with better performance, right? At the end of the day, is what really happens. And it's like kind of going back to support work. So they feel, so passionately about your work that they named a conference room after you in their building. The impact of your work seems huge. What's working that, other teams here could take away into, their own organization?
So what's working for them is, and they, just to be clear, exponential revenue growth. They're a privately held company, but as they told you in the interviews, exponential revenue growth. What's public is they've been voted the best place to work. So that is the holy grail of business. Customers love us and want to pay top dollar, and employees want to come to work here. Like, that's it. So they got both those. And so what are they doing? First and foremost, they have clarity about how they make a difference to customers, and they keep it front and center. We've all been to the flavor of the month programs. Your purpose is your true north. They keep it front and center. The other thing that they do really well is they explain the ratios, the sequencing, the ordering. They say, yes, we want to make money. And as I always said, the money is a lagging indicator. It is the result of us redefining the entire experience for our customers. So that is something that they do well. So again, anybody can do that in any company of any size. Here's our noble purpose. The financial results are a measure of how well we're achieving it. Right? The other thing that they do really well is they storytell. So a lot of people are talking about stories in business. So this is something you can do right now, even if you haven't established your purpose, is at your next sales meeting, whether you got 5,000 people or 5 people, tell me a story about a time when we made a difference to customers. And this is really important. And they do it like it's every Monday morning. We want to have one of these customer impact stories. The book lines out and the video lines out exactly how to do it. But a customer impact story is a story about how you made a difference to customers. Because what happens is most of the time in business, we tell win stories. Ronak closed the deal. He's awesome. Oh, heck yeah, we love Ronak. And that's great for recognition. But half the room is sitting there going, I'm taking him down next week. Next month, it's going to be me. And a customer impact story is, here's how we made a difference to our customers, because that's a story we can all be part of. That's how you build a culture. You lift up the person who really did it, which is great, but now we're all part of that. And so the things they do well, they keep the true north, they storytell, and they embed it in training and onboarding.
super helpful. I think, I mean, there's a ton that we can even incorporate here at my company, LIT Videobooks. So, of course, we can't cover everything in the video book today, but let's take it, one step further. So once you name and claim your noble sales purpose, you say there's one technique that companies can, very easily practice that can drive customer relationships and sales. So let's learn about it now from the brand that we've mentioned and that everyone here should know, Hilton, who uses this technique to their advantage. So we're going to play another clip here.
So where do we start? McLeod offers this simple first step to developing a deeper understanding of the customer through the you, me, you technique.
So I'll give you an example. In the presentation phase, you've done all your discovery, you're ready to pitch. Too often a seller will say, let us tell you all about what we have for you. Instead, if you start your presentation saying, I've learned a lot about you, let's talk about how we can potentially help you solve X, Y, Z, whatever you learned. That tells the customer, oh, this isn't going to be about you. This is going to be about me.
We have integrated the techniques within our core Hilton sales skills training that all of our sales professionals everywhere in the globe follow. We open with a well-researched topic of interest to the customer. We offer our expertise that may be helpful to pique interest. And then we ask a big, open-ended question that gets the customer talking and encourages the customer to share more about their current situation.
You, me, you.
You, me,
It
you.
seems, obvious, but I'm sure it falls to the wayside when companies are finding their footing and trying to prove themselves. Do you have recommendations on, the research phase of this technique? And I guess, how much do you need to know before going into a sales or prospect meeting to be able to deliver on this?
So I want to put some context in this, and I love that we're doing this in this call. So we talked about this big aspirational purpose, and now we are going down to a single technique. And this is one of several techniques that we teach. And the word technique is agnostic. There are techniques designed to manipulate the customer. This is not one of those. This is a technique designed to bring the best of what you have and elicit the best from them. So this technique depends on a seller doing their homework. And there's no excuse for people not to do their homework now. I mean, I'm old enough I sold before the internet was invented. Okay. And so I get it that you might not have a lot of time, but come on, you could do a Google search while the little wheel is spinning. So what is you, me, you? It's helpful to see the distinction. Most salespeople will open a call, a good one, will open a call saying, I know you all are in a really competitive marketplace and we've helped a lot of people gain a competitive advantage. Can we talk about that? It's not the worst opening in the world, but what's going to happen is the customer is going to go, sure. And then who's going to start talking? Wah, wah, wah. Let me tell you about how we did it for so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And it might stick if what you're describing is something that they've already thought of that they need. If you're talking about one of their competitors and how you did it for someone similar, it might stick. But the reality is you're just going blind. So what we teach sales teams and what Hilton, and let's just take in how great Hilton was. So that the VP of sales, Frank, they implemented this all over the world. So the you, me, you is instead of just, hey, I understand you're in a competitive marketplace. We've helped a lot of people in similar situations. The last part's really key. How have you handled this? Now we're going to have a discovery call instead of a seller talking call. So the question that you asked about what kind of research do you do in advance is the call doesn't start with, hey, we're Hilton. We host the best meetings ever. Would you like to have your meeting at our hotel? I mean, they do have great meetings. I've been to 10 of them, but that's not a great start because then you're just like every other hotel vendor out there. So they do some homework. And if you're a B2B seller and calling on businesses, like the information's out there, okay? You don't have to go that deep. So they would say, I know that your CEO said one of the big challenges was building a culture virtually. We've worked with a lot of companies to make the most of that one time when people get together. Can we talk a little bit about your culture and what some of the challenges are you're facing? If I'm calling on the head meeting planner or the head of HR and I have that, I am speaking their language. And so the you, me, you sounds like a complicated technique, but it's not. I've done a little bit of homework about the customer if I'm in the early stage. So I'm not going in with that blind, so what keeps you awake at night? I haven't done any of my homework. No, they don't have time for that. I've done a little bit of homework. I understand this and this might be an issue for you. So like when I talk to someone, if I'm talking to a senior executive, I have really done my homework, even if they've reached out to me and I'm trying to figure out what their competitive positioning is and what some of their challenges are that I think they might be, so I can have an informed conversation. So I would say, it looks like you're number 3 in a very cost competitive marketplace. We've helped a lot of people. Tell me a little bit about where you are in that landscape and what you're doing about it. Do you see, like if I'm selling concrete, I would say, looks like your building's about 50 years old. And a lot of people start to have challenges about that time. We've helped them shore it up. Tell me about what's happening with your building now. Like it can be literally be that simple, but it's something about the customer. I have some expertise, but what Frank articulated so well in that is I want my sales calls to start with a really good question that the customer goes, I'm glad you asked that.
It's fascinating that this hasn't been, I don't think it's been widely adopted because I've personally been on so many sales calls where it's all about them and the customer and the client and how amazing they are and what they've done for others without even, it's maybe 10 or 15 minutes into the call and I haven't even introduced myself, right? And so it's I think it's so important. And I guess now in the age of AI and rapid innovation, are you seeing any processes for kind of preparation or tools that are out there that have been helpful when kind of helping other folks kind of prepare for meetings and really deliver on you?
Yes and no. And I'll tell you what the yes is. Literally, if you are calling on someone, Google the company's name, Google comments from the CEO, Google biggest challenges. If they're a publicly traded company, you can find it out. Even if you're calling on someone down here, you can still say, well, I know your CEO said XYZ. How is that affecting your department? And they may tell you, we don't pay any attention to that at all. Or they may say, it's a biggest challenge. I mean, and so when I say yes, there are plenty of tools out there, and you can use AI to ask, what are the biggest challenges this company faces? That when you start getting really good with AI, I'm not a tech expert, but when you start getting really, so I'm not going to make a specific recommendation, but when you start getting really good at what are their biggest challenges? How are they differentiated? What makes them special? What are their risk points? Like you can really get some good information. So that's the yes. The no is the thing that most salespeople sit inside of every day, all day is their CRM. And in most cases, that is not helping you make a better sales call. That is putting a boot on your neck for closing it fast because the CRM usually exists to give your manager sight line into deals in play and revenue tracking. Super helpful, super important, but staring at your CRM all day is not going to help you, with one exception. If you read the chapter in the book or you worked with us, we make a point of capturing actual customer intelligence in the CRM so that if I am looking at my sale, I'm being reminded of what I found in the discovery process of their goals and their challenges. Most CRMs don't have that kind of prompting. They just do order history, name, date, all that stuff. And so when you talk about the technology, the question you want to ask yourself is what behavior is my technology driving? And if my technology is driving an angsty sales rep that's showing up feeling like I have to close it today, it's not doing you any favors because a customer can read that's transactional energy. And they may have to close it today. And they may be behind on their number, but that's not the first thing I want in their head when they're on a call. I want to park that and say, How can we improve life for this customer? That, all the research tells us, will help you close a bigger deal, will help you close a deal faster, and will help you close it at a higher margin.
Absolutely. It's a very, very common trap for every salesperson that's on a quota, right? They're in that last few weeks of the quarter and they're looking at their CRM and they're like, okay, what can I push along, right? And so I think it's super imperative to kind of be able to take a step back, right? And remember what noble purpose is.
And so if you think about that, what can I move along? That is a perfectly fine question. You should be asking that question. But what we want to get is, those are the activity questions. What can I push along? What do I have a good chance of closing? That drives my activity. Then when I show up in front of the customer, I need to flip the switch. And we have a hack for that. And you covered it in the video book, and it's the single question. How will this customer be different as a result of doing business with us? So if I'm a seller, even if I'm about to get fired because I haven't met my number, and I've been self-employed for a long time. So, and I was a VP of sales. So the financial pressure is very real. But if before I interact with that customer, I can snap myself to, how will this customer be different as a result of doing business with us? You'll have more powerful sales behavior.
It's an amazing question. And I guess to wrap this up before Q&A, let's chat a little about Hilton. So speaking in the video book was Frank Passanante, Hilton's VP of Global Sales. He took the time to participate because he's really passionate about this practice. And what do you think Hilton is doing right? And similar question to what we had for SupportWorks. Are there any takeaways from what Hilton's doing that could apply to attendees and companies that are in the audience? For them to adopt?
So I'll tell you a couple things that Hilton is doing really right. Number one, their CEO, Chris Nassetta, before he became CEO, said, I want to go back and read what Conrad Hilton wrote and what he said. So one thing that they did really right was mining the origin story of the company. Why did this company start? And Conrad Hilton, a man ahead of his time, said, our purpose is to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. And that was, Hilton's a big business. They, went through iterations. But when Chris Nassetta became the CEO, he said, I'm going to go back and we're going to rekindle that. So one of the things that he did right that anybody could do, if your business is 3 or 4 years old, why did the business start in the first place? Is go back and look at that. Because most businesses start because somebody sees an opportunity. And it's not just an opportunity to make money. It's an opportunity that something is happening or not happening that their business addresses. So number one, go back and look at why the business start in the first place. And I do that with a lot of CEOs where they've been acquired and they're part of this and part of that. And we go back and say, why did it start? And there's usually a story there. The next thing, and I'm going to go all the way full circle, is the next thing that they do is they make sure it goes to every single level in the company. And so I mentioned, if I am the front desk clerk at the Hilton Garden Inn in Vietnam, I know what the purpose is and I know my part. And so one of the other things that they've done really well, is we developed a program for them that went all around the world for individual meetings where managers said, this is our purpose. How do we connect to that at the employee level? How are we making a difference to customers? How are we filling the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality? Because too often people think it's a messaging down, and that matters. That matters a lot. The voice of the CEO matters. But what we did there was we also held space and created a structure so that each employee is participating in a conversation about how I make a difference. Then, so that's here and that's here. Now let's go to Frank and his team there in the middle, because Frank was the champion of this. When it comes to the sales team, one of the things that they do that anybody can do, you will not go to a Hilton sales meeting without someone describing very vivid detail how they made a difference to customers. And there's a story in the video book, but every Hilton sales meeting, someone says, where's our noble purpose story? and someone will tell a story. And it can be as simple as, we hosted this sales meeting for 25 people and it was wonderful and they were on fire. And I came down and looked at the ballroom and they were together, because they are painting that picture for everyone of how what they sell makes a difference. And the last thing I'll tell you is the people that are customer facing are sharing those stories with the people that are not customer facing. Because that guy working in headquarters in accounting, he needs to know this stuff, these numbers that move, these are real live human beings. And we have impacted their lives for their wedding, their sales meeting, their family reunion, whatever it is. This is the essence of what we do, and everyone's touching it.
It's wonderful. And Lisa, thanks so much for kind of taking us through so many different parts of selling with noble purpose today. So now we have a few questions from our audience, if you're ready for that.
Yes.
And so we're going to start off with the first one. So when you were getting tremendous pressure from your leaders to make the numbers, and short-term thinking seems to be the only way of thinking, how do you see past that and self-motivate through noble purpose?
So the first thing to understand is, I get this question a lot, and I'll speak at a conference and salespeople will come up to me and say, I believe this. I love my customers, but my boss, all they care about is the numbers. And so the first thing I would tell you is, lose the disdain for your boss. At least be neutral. You have no idea what kind of pressure they're under. And oftentimes the reason that they are putting that pressure on you is because that pressure is coming from above them. And they may care deeply about customers, but they're not giving voice to it on a daily basis because they think it's implied. What they're giving voice to is the urgent thing in front of you. And so the first thing is, understand that this is a very logical outcome. They're not necessarily a bad person. Now, your boss might be a horrible person. I have no idea. But just the fact that they're focused on numbers does not make them a bad person. And so I'm going to use an analogy that everyone can relate to, which is school teachers. They have a boot on their neck for test scores. Let's go take it all the way up. The nation evaluates our schools based on test scores. Parents decide where to move based on test scores. Parents choose a school, a private school, based on test scores. That comes down to the state, to the county, to the principal, to the teacher. Test scores, test scores, test scores. We all know that shouting at a teacher every day, improve your test scores, does not make them a better teacher. In fact, it probably makes them a worse teacher. The same thing is true with salespeople, because you're shouting at them about a lagging indicator. So we also know, this is, how do you handle that the best teachers reset, and the best teachers instead. So imagine you're a history teacher and you're getting test scores. They all have to pass the AP, test scores. The best teachers say, that's my lagging indicator. I understand that. But when I wake up every day, what I'm focused on, if I'm a history teacher, is I'm trying to help enliven their understanding of how this country came to be who it is. And I'm trying to create informed, excited citizens. That's what I'm here for. Now, the research tells us that teacher's going to have better test scores. And whose class would you rather be in? And so when you get this pressure, this is a two-part thing. The first part is, bless their hearts, they are focused on lagging indicators because they are a boot on their neck. And I have absolute compassion for them. That's there. For me, I am here. If I am a seller, how do I make a difference to customers? And that does not mean giving away the store. That does not mean lowering your prices. It's actually the opposite. And so you answer those three discovery questions. How do I make a difference? How do I do it differently? On my best day, what do I love about my job? Because when we studied sales teams, that was the top 5% of sellers. Their boss may have been doing this thing. That's fine. They had their own true north. And I know that that can be difficult to do in the face of someone that is putting all that pressure on you. But what the research told us is there was this top 5% of sellers who did that. They achieved better results. And here's the other thing. They were happier. They enjoyed their jobs more. So like, you don't have to wait for your boss to get on board with this. And so I'll tell you, bless their hearts. They're just doing the transactional way businesses run. Second piece is I'm going to reset my own true north. And then if you're really great, here's what you do when you start getting the numbers is when they say your numbers are great, then you answer and you say, yeah, what we do makes such a difference to customers. Let me tell you a story about one of them. Then you start to become that cultural ambassador.
But and so we have a lot more questions here, so I'm going to try to get a few more. I know we're coming up on time. So first one. So hi Lisa, this is such a great concept. How do you deal with skeptics when it comes to pushing the new noble sales purpose in an organization?
So I'll give you the advice someone gave me. First off, you play to the top of the room. The middle will catch up and the bottom of the room will be their own problem. What happens is we tend to over-index on the skeptics. That's not who your message is for. We tend to worry about the guy in the room. Oh, I've heard this a ton of times on leadership meetings. Oh, we've got this guy, Tom, on our team, and all he cares about is the money, and he's going to push back, and he's going to push back. Well, we got 8 other people on the team. Well, we're not going to over-index. So first of all, you play the top of the room. The second thing is, it's in the video book. It's in the book. Use the numbers. Companies with a purpose bigger than money outperform the market by 350%. Sales organizations with a purpose bigger than money have more tenacity and put forth more effort over time. Like the research is there. So those of us that are moved by the human heart and want to make a difference, it's all in the ordering. So if you are facing a team of skeptics, and I've had to present this to a team of finance people, say, everything I'm going to tell you is in the service of improving our numbers. And I cite the statistics and say, we're going to talk about emotions. We're going to talk about the way people feel, but you need to know the research could not be more clear. So lead with the thing, meet people where they are and lead with the thing that they need. And if they need a surety that this drives numbers, have them watch the video book, watch 2 companies whose numbers went through the roof, and then say, yeah, we can do that here.
Love it. And I think one other question. So what's the best way to kind of incorporate the noble sales purpose into someone's sales workflow? So like what have kind of other salespeople done to kind of incorporate noble purpose in their various interactions with prospects?
Since we only have a minute, I'll give the very short answer. At crucial points in your sales flow, ask, how will the customer be different as a result of doing business with us? Ask that before you go in. How could they be different as a result of doing business with us? And focus your line of questioning on the possible ways, not proving it, but the possible ways. When you're at the end of the process, make sure your presentation is organized around the impact that you're going to have, not how great your features are. So if you use that question to guide your behavior, you're uncovering how they might be different, and then you're demonstrating how they could be different.
Wonderful. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. And before everyone goes, a few quick items. So if you haven't done so yet, check your registration confirmation email and for complimentary access to the Selling with Noble Purpose video book. And make sure to follow our LinkedIn page or follow us on social media to find out about our upcoming author fireside chat. So next month, we will be hosting Joel Peterson, former chairman of JetBlue and best-selling author of Entrepreneurial Leadership. And of course, if you're interested in learning how LIT for Teams can drive engagement, behavioral change through micro-learning at your organization, you and your learning and development or HR or people teams can trial it for free. So just go to our website, to our LIT for Teams area, and you can learn more. So thanks again, Lisa. And I hope everyone here has a great rest of the week and weekend.
Thanks.